Hello everybody, thank you for joining us and welcome to today's webinar on farm safety. As you know, this week is Farm Safety Week, so here at Herdwatch we're trying to increase awareness of the dangers that are out there on farm and how to stay safe. So my name is Owen Maloney and I'm Head of Member Experience here at Herdwatch. I'm also delighted to say that I'm joined here today by Alma Jordan from AgriKids and also by Jim Dockery, who is Jim is Farm Safety Manager at FRS Network. So thank you very much for joining us, guys. How are you both doing today?
Good, Owen. Good, thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant. We really appreciate you coming on to give some advice on safety on farms and how people can really, try and improve the processes on their farms and make lives a little bit easier and obviously safer for themselves. So we're going to be hearing a lot more from Jim and Alma in the next couple of minutes. So if you do have any questions or queries that you'd like me to ask Alma and Jim towards the end of the webinar, please just use the chat facility there at the bottom of your screen. You can pop in your questions throughout the webinar. We've some time left aside at the end that we will cover some questions and queries. So both Alma and Jim will have an opportunity to try and answer those questions there. I think I'm right in saying that Alma and Jim, you're both farmers yourselves at home. And I know you're both very passionate about increasing the awareness around farm safety. So really looking forward to your thoughts on that over the next couple of minutes. Alma, I'm going to start with you if that's okay. I'm just going to pass over to you and I'm going to let you drive on. I know you have some really good content ready to go. And Jim, you'll be up then after that. So let you off there now, Alma. And I think your first slide is up there and ready to go.
That's great. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity. I very much found myself by accident becoming a very passionate farm safety advocate. And I grew up on a farm in County Kildare, and now I live in a farm just outside Drogheda. I'm right on the Loudmeath border. But it took me to become a mother to really recognise the fact that the place that I grew up on, the place that I was living and rearing a family, is so incredibly dangerous. I mean, there is no better place for a child to learn about life and science and animals, but there is also extreme dangers when it comes to working and living so close to a farmyard. So it was actually in August 2014 that the initial idea for AgriKids came about. And I remember sitting at home and I heard about the deaths of 2 young children. And I kind of realized, I said, there is nothing to say that my family is not 100% safe. Nothing that we do is any different to what anybody else is doing. So we really needed, I believed, to start the conversation around farm safety. So I decided that because I felt a lot of it was being directed towards farmers and it was their responsibility to share it. But at the end of the day, when you're a farm family, that onus is on everybody to know and be aware about the safety within the home. When it comes to rearing a child, we safety-proof the home. We tell them to keep their hands out of the fire. We should really be putting the same principles when it comes into farm life also. So I began to try to educate myself a little bit more about farm safety, to be honest with you. And I realized that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And when I began looking for different resources, I kind of thought, do you know what? They're not really talking to me or the children. They're very much geared towards the farmer in terms of their tone and their language. And for me, I felt that we all needed to be involved in this. And I really wanted to start something that was going to engage us, that was going to educate us, and that was going to really empower us on the topic. I wanted a resource that was really going to kickstart a conversation and make the whole ethos of farm safety much more instinctive. Everybody was aware of it. We all know about it, but that awareness was not translating into practice. So we needed something else. We needed an all-inclusive approach that was going to involve every member of the family and the community. So when I began to break it down a little bit more, I saw that the common thread with the home, with community, and with this whole empowering, was actually children. They're within the home, they're within classrooms, and they're also basically the upcoming generation of farmer. But not only that, I realized that children are really powerful influencers. I worked for REPAC for quite a while, and we used to do a lot of work with the Green Schools program. And I used to listen to our kids talking very passionately about segregating waste and recycling and reusing and conservation and all that kind of stuff. And I thought to myself, if you throw a tractor and a bull and a trailer and slurry into that mix, you're really going to have the kids fully engaged, and maybe they'll bring that message home as well. And that was really the fundamentals of AgriKids. It was finding something that was going to engage children, that was going to educate children, but was also going to empower them to become farm safety ambassadors. And the kind of resources that I went on to create very much fit into that tone. So when it comes to the home life, I brought out a series of, we have children's storybooks, we have apps for their mobile devices, and these are designed specifically to not just talk to the kids about farm safety, but to allow the parents to interact with the children on the topic too. And even the storybooks, they touch very specifically on key areas around safety. We talk about machinery, we talk about falling, we talk about livestock, and they fit into a very easy to read, easy to digest story. And I really thought that that's where the AgriKids story was going to end. I had created for me the conversation within our home, an opportunity for families to interact as one on the topic of farm safety. But it was only when a librarian got in touch with me and says, do you do like workshops or anything like that? And I said, no. But I decided, listen, I'll give it a go. I'll do it. And that was the best thing I ever did, because I immediately got into community-based organizations. I got into libraries, I got into schools. And from that, I was able to create more relevant resources for teachers to actually use within classrooms, because farm safety is on the national school curriculum. It's under fire, farm, road and water. They're the 4 safety strands under SPHE on the curriculum. So this was actually fulfilling that need. And May and June are key times within schools that they are covering the farm safety topic just before the kids break up for school. And with COVID, unfortunately, we lost that opportunity. So to have those resources there was something that could be used for homeschooling. Then within key organizations, I got to do a number of child-focused farm safety themed resources, and with Teagasc we've actually done 6 editions now of the Jesse's Smart Kids series, and those they're a 4-page A5 size newsletter full of activities and helpful tips, all for children, all on key areas around farming and farm safety. That goes out in the Teagasc circular to about 20,000 of their clients. So that's, for me, is key, because I know that's getting right into farm families and into farms, and that for me is absolutely vital. But this is, I suppose, what I'm most proud of. Over 30,000 children at this point have taken part in an AgriKids workshop, and I'm going out to schools. They could be rural, they're not all rural, I should add. I get called into a lot of schools, but when I go into a rural school, I know what I'm going into. These kids know their stuff. They know about slurry. They are passionate. They've asked me what my acreage is. They've asked me what my yield was on a previous harvest. They've asked me what my CC on the quad is. There are no Egypts. There was actually 3 kids in particular who wouldn't allow me to start until I admitted that a class tractor was far superior than a New Holland. And these guys were 10 years of age and they were adamant. But when I get in front of an audience like that, I use props and resources that are real. For example, we talk about electricity. I showed them fence testers. We were talking about the importance of PPE long before COVID, and why we use a nitrile glove when maybe doing pour-ons and working with animals. And we talk about the different signs you might see around a farm, and why some are yellow and some are red and some are green. You got to keep this relevant. You got to keep it real. There's no point in telling your children you can't go down to the farm. Tell them why. Tell them, well, we're busy now today, we're drawing silage, or we're busy today, you know, we're working with the animals, we're moving livestock. Explain to them why they actually can't go. To have that opportunity to speak to children on the topic in the tone that they know and understand opens up so many doors. I have about 40 minutes with these groups of kids, and in those 40 minutes you would have complete engagement. And a magic time for me is when a hand will go up at the back and a child either shares a story from their own farm or shares a concern that they have. And it's very important to know that right now our children are being surrounded by news clips about sickness, about people dying, and now we've got Farm Safety Week and it's all again about the dangers, and that can be quite worrying for them. So it's important that we reassure them that we're doing everything that we can to keep ourselves safe. But there have been, on more than one occasion, a hand will go up, and I remember one little girl in particular in Donegal asked me, you know, how much a PTO cover costs, and I said why, and she goes, well, my daddy doesn't have one, and we do quite a detailed piece around the importance of covering a PTO, and I explained to her, you know, what they might cost, and she actually smiled and says, oh, I thought it'd be much dearer than at that. I got my confirmation money. I reckon I could buy him one with that. So we got to be really careful that we are kind of, you know, doing what we need to do to make sure we stay safe, and obviously to always educate our kids on what we're doing to stay safe, and to very much lead by example, because they absorb a lot more than we probably give them credit for. And I think to be able to reassure them is the best thing that we can do for them. 2020 was to be a terrific year, says everybody everywhere, because I believe that for me to really kind of, there was no silver bullet when it comes to farm safety and curbing the deaths. It has to be this all-inclusive approach. And I decided about a year ago that I was going to branch out a little bit and create a set of guidelines for media, because all too often I was seeing a lot of pictures in newspapers and press, etc., showing pictures that didn't promote farm safety. And they may have looked nice as a picture, but for those of us working in the area of farm accident prevention, they completely flouted the actual rules. I mean, you might have people on quad bikes with no helmets on. You might have children riding on the back of a trailers. I even saw children photographed driving tractors as part of vintage tractor runs. And that kind of behaviour in so many ways kind of gives permission to people to carry it out. And if we don't stop that culture and that belief system that, you know, those practices are grand, we're not going to see the rate of accidents coming down. We're not going to see the rate of fatalities coming down. So I did feel the media had a very key responsibility in making sure that they were doing their part to promote the whole concept of farm safety, because at the end of the day, we'd never see a car ad without somebody wearing a seatbelt, or we'd never see people now in a restaurant smoking or whatever else. It just wouldn't be done. And I suppose that was a principle I'm trying to apply when it comes to the Farm Safety Media Charter. We were due to launch it in January, about 9 days before they called a general election. And then we all know what happened then. After that, then I go to a lot of shows and events, and I was always very conscious of the fact that I would have my poor little car filled to the brim with tablets and games and everything else. And I felt that there was a much better way for me to get the message out there, for me to interact with communities and the children with the resources that I had. And was when I went to an event in England a couple of years ago. I saw the Discovery Barn that the National Farmers Union had, and I thought, that's fantastic. How can I make that happen for us? So I pretty much begged, borrowed and stole, and managed to acquire a vehicle. It's been kitted out, and the Farm Safety Roadshow is going to showcase the games, the digital games, the apps. There'll be something for younger children. It'll be an opportunity to do workshops, all at the event, all at, whether it's an agricultural show, whether it's at a school event, whether it's at any kind of stakeholder event. I can come on site and offer a dedicated, consistent, educational and interactive experience for children on the topic of farm safety that totally aligns to the ethos of engage, educate and empower. And that for me is something I'm very excited about, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be next year by the time we can get that out properly. I'm involved with a lot of organisations around the world, and it's good to know that we're not on our own when it comes to the problems of farm safety. Within Europe, I mean, they can tell us how many cows we sold, but they can't tell us how many farmers have been hurt. But we do estimate it's about 1,000 farmers a year are dying in Europe just for doing the work that they do each and every day. Within America, a child dies every 3 days. 33 are injured daily. And it's all for the same reasons. It's all down to livestock. It's all down to machinery. Quad bikes are becoming a huge issue now. And one of the things I would cover off in the workshops and webinars that I currently do is the fact that if there's one seat, there's one passenger, the importance of wearing PPE. But again, I explained to them why it's only one passenger, and that's obviously to allow weight to move forward and back. And by having a passenger on the bike means we're going to unbalance and more likely to topple over. So when you explain that to a child, they go, "All right, oh, okay." They absolutely get it. This campaign was done in the United States, the Red Sticker campaign, and for me, it just sums up so much about how I feel about farm safety. I mean, I understand. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and the job has to be done, and it's very important that it's done, and it will always take priority. But as I tell my dad, my brothers, my husband, my uncles, my cousins, the only thing you have to do every single day is to come home. I spoke to a paramedic who told me one of the worst parts of his job is dealing with farm accidents, especially when they have to remove another man's boots. He says it's absolutely heartbreaking. And what I would want nothing more in a life is for greater collaboration on the topic with all the stakeholders. Because at the end of the day, we have all the tools, we have all the resources, we just need to join them all together. And I think better support this sector on the topic of farm safety through education, but through expanded education to include far more members of the farming community. And I think if we have that, if we nail that, then we will have, I would think, a safer future to look forward to on our farms. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alma. I think just a really, really good insight there into, I suppose, the resources that AgriKids do provide as well, and educating the small ones out there to the dangers, you know. Fantastic, really. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. And I mean, I go into preschools. I'm called into preschools, and there's children as young as 3, so it's never too early to start the conversation with them.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing there. You know, kids are learning from a very young age, and it's like you said, never too young to start. Thanks very much, Alma. So there's a few questions coming in, but I'm going to hold off for a couple of minutes. I'm going to let you come in, Jim, if that's okay.
Okay, Owen.
I know you have a couple of bits ready to go there as well. So I'll let you just drive on, Jim. I know you're manager at FRS here. So
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Owen. Thanks very much. And thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thanks to all your team in Herdwatch. We have the easy part. You have all the preparation work beforehand, and your team there with Mervyn and James and the lads. So thanks very much. The picture you're looking at there now was just one we took today on a farm in Borrisokane. We launched Farm Safety Week with FRS Network. And I suppose, I don't know how well you can see it there, but it's on the banner there, it's where we need to get other people involved. So it's a team effort. So we have, what we're doing is partnership with the IFA and the Health and Safety Authority and FRS Network. The only way we can control farm accidents and try and keep them under control and reduce them is by working as a team. So all the stakeholders involved has to work together in that context there. Alma mentioned some information about the farm accidents of the statistics as the word I hate to use, but what you're looking at there is a pie chart of stats over a 10-year period, and I'm not going to go any great detail in the money, just to point out 2 areas in particular. If you look at the light blue color here, it's tractors and vehicles, and in farms they're the most commonly used. So you have the tractor itself, the Jeep, and maybe the quad bike. And they account for 31% of the fatal accidents over the years, over a 10-year period now. It's not just 1 year, it's over 10 years. So they're consistently high all the time. And the orange one down here below then is the machinery. So this is the tractor on its own, if you like, and the vehicles. This one then is where you add the machinery. So it accounts for 19. So put them two together and you have just 50%, just 51% of the farm accidents that happen every year. And the other big chunk there is the one in red here, which is the livestock. So we're always continuously saying for the last 10 years and longer, tractors, machinery and livestock are the three big areas that cause fatal accidents and injuries on farms. So if we can focus on those, I suppose, and deal with those, then we'll bring down the accidents hugely. The other ones then, there are other ones there, falls and trips and some forestry related and so on as well. Next one then, I suppose, is to realise that when there's a fatal accident, it's horrendous. We don't think of it. We hear regularly on the news and so on, but that family there is grieving for the loss, and predominantly it's the father for the most part. it's a family member, and it could be a child too. So it's predominantly the father in the family that has been killed in the farm accident. Worse still, it's outside your door. So every morning, even once you go out there to start milking cows or whatever, you're looking at where the accident happened, and that's fairly horrendous there. So that picture, I think, there, and the words tell a story there. This is a slide I often put up when I'm doing training courses. It's not farm related directly, so it's a kind of a, people might call it a scut truck or whatever, propped up with 2 sticks. And, you know, I would use the scenario. So here's a local mechanic who is very highly qualified, has driven into town. How many of you would use him? And of course, no hand in the classroom will go up, because they can see that this guy is doing something that's extremely dangerous. And that's the thing, I suppose. You know, when you look at a picture, it tells you something. But without the picture, if I was to try and describe that individual there, here's a guy who, you know, it's totally different. So I suppose the point there of that is that when you're a contractor or somebody coming in to do work for you, have you ever vetted them to see how safe they are, with safety statements, with insurance and so on? Next slide then is the question is, what is the potential risk? And it's very simple, a chain and sprocket. Most machines that are on farms today are driven by a chain and sprocket. And what's the risk? And the risk is, I suppose, is very simple. You see it on the next slide here. Getting the hands trapped, and it'd be horrendous though if people are a bit squeamish about blood or injuries like that. But there's a scenario where somebody didn't put down the guard to cover the chain and sprocket, and as a result then there's the consequence of a rotating chain and sprocket, and the hand there will probably be never able to be used again based on that type of accident there. Another one that's not that well maybe thought about or considered is hydraulic oil. So on the hand on the left here, you might be difficult to see, it's a little tiny pinhole. So it's not a burst pipe, it's a pinhole develops in hydraulic pipe. And with that, you might not see that because it's so small. The hydraulic pipe might be somewhere around 3000 PSI, and it injects in, and it's just like a syringe injected into your hand. All you feel is a pinch, and then this place gets all red. And the medics of today are not able to separate blood from oil. And as a result, you can see this is a different hand, but you can see the index finger here will probably have to be taken off by the looks of it there. It's fairly serious. So hydraulic oil is something that farmers need to be very careful. And these are quite common actions. That may not kill you, and you won't see it as a fatality, but it has a huge impact on the loss and the mobility of the hand afterwards going forward. Here we have a teleporter. And part of our training, I suppose, is what we're saying in this step here. Essential training is the key step. So this guy is driving a teleporter here. And if you look at where the driver might be, he's looking out, and the bag of fertilizer on the front pallet forks is right in his line of view. So all you need to do there in the training is just drop it down to within 6 inches of the ground. You can see then out over the pallet fork here, over to the bag, and you have a much better view. But without the training, without telling somebody that, they continuously drive. So a little bit of training is hugely important there. This is the month of July, and the bull is out on probably every farm in the country that's going to be using bulls at the moment, and it tends to be a dangerous time of the year because the bull, it's mating season or the end of the mating season, and farmers will walk into the field where the bull is present, and it's a big risk in that there. This bull here, just showing you what I'm looking for when we do training with farm workers and farmers themselves. The bull looks quite initial. So we see the ears are below the head. The ears are not pricked up or cocked up. And the head is below the spine. So if I was to put a level across there, the head is lower than his spine. So an aggressive bull or an angry bull, the head will be raised up, the ears will be pricked up, and you can pretty much assess the animal's behavior before you go into the pen. So we're, you know, throwing a bale of straw into that pen there, the bull is going to start frisking around, jumping around, and the next thing then, not out of attack, but out of being playful, he might hit you. I have a scenario that every gate should have 2 positions. It's either locked opened or locked closed. So following on from the livestock slide, every gate should be locked open. So here's a hasp that is the gate is in the open position, and the very same hasp will close the gate. So it means this little lad here is mounted to the wall, and it makes it very safe, because livestock, these are large 15'9" or 16-foot barriers. They're heavy, or gates, and they can swing around and be quite dangerous there. So just simple little thing that can be adopted to make it safer. Again, an open slurry lagoon, there's a gate in the front of it. A gate is not adequate. There's lots of gates around, and again, there's some bale twine and stuff tying them there. This is 8 foot deep of watery slurry, so it's absolutely deadly dangerous. If a child were to kick the ball in there, and go in after it, they're going to drop down. If an animal were to jump the gate or break in at night, they're going to go down into. So you're looking at a secure area there. So that would be a real danger point on that farm if somebody was to visit that and comment on it. Again, the slurry related one where the slat has been taken up. It's an old type, it's a full gang slat. This is the agitation point in this particular shed. You can see the ropes there where the farmer has taken up the slat, used the ropes to lift them. That's not suitable for that. Well, what he needs or she needs to do there is to buy a gang slat with a safety manhole in it. It's going to cost 350, 400 euro, but that's the only way that situation there can be made safe. The next one then is a chemical press, if you like. It's left open and the key is in the door there. So all the chemicals, lovely job, lovely press, suitable for Board B inspections and all the rest of it, keeping all your chemicals together, but it's opened. Somebody walked away and left it open, whereas the slide on the right is showing the right thing to do, whereas it's closed, locked, and there's a safety sign or a safety notice put on it. And that's what we would expect when we see chemicals on farms of what should happen. Here's an open tank, and I suppose, you know, the people that are listening in tonight, my simple message is action. If somebody listens and looks at all the various videos and everything, but they do nothing themselves, it's not much use. You have to take action. So here's a tank here. It's dangerous. It's children could fall in, animals could fall in. What do you do? Well, you cover it. And you can see the picture on the right hand side then, the guard or the frame has been covered with the mesh lid welded onto or sat on the top of it there. And now it's safe. So here's a dangerous situation. The right hand side is a safe situation. It has been sorted. So somebody has taken action. One word, housekeeping. The couple of posts that are there thrown around the ground, they're in a nice little cage here. Your fence and post or whatever, they're stacked nice and neatly. You can drive in under that with the pallet forks and move them around as you need them. And that's good examples of what should be on a farm, where you keep things nice and neat and tidy. How often have you seen fire extinguishers? Somebody gave 90, 100 euro for that fire extinguisher off somebody that drove into the yard or whatever. It's put up on the wall and it's never been checked, serviced or anything ever since. So it's sitting there gathering dust and we don't know whether it's worked or not. So these things do need to be checked annually and serviced. So fire is a big thing on some farms, particularly where you have straw and so on. Another scenario where you have a lot of, you know, I suppose not rubbish because it's all recycling, but you have a lot of stuff hanging around the farmyard, thrown outside the door here in a particular scenario. And when we look in detail at the drums, there's a battery there, there's some plastic, there's some steel. In actual fact, everything in it is recyclable. So all you segregate that and bring it to the various different, put them into the various different skips in the recycle center. Everything in the photograph there is recyclable. So a tidy farm is a safe farm. And I think it's almost lastly then on the risk assessment is a requirement for all farmers to have. And because it's Farm Safety Week, it's probably a good time to maybe have a look at the one you have. If you have one, if you haven't one, it might be a good time. And this is something that should be done to me with the family table, the same as you discuss GAA or something else. Have a chat about this at the family table over dinner or tea or whatever. Get the kids involved. I have kids myself and we do a lot of showing Angus cattle and short turns at shows, and we would always involve them. And why do I need to keep the slats and the slurry when I'm agitating? Get them to answer the questions for you, and kids are fantastic for that. So this is showing just a snapshot of the screen for the online version for that. So it's a good week to consider maybe having a look at that. So thanks very much for the chance to do that short presentation for you.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks again, Jim. I think there's some really good slides in there, educational slides, and I think it's so important to point out how easy it is for things to go wrong, you know, and I think a lot of the advice you were given there are relatively straightforward things to do, Jim, that will make a huge difference on the farm. So thank you so much. Am I right in saying, Jim, that the farm safety risk assessment, is that now part of the compliance audit or the quality assurance audit?
It is, yeah. Anyway, Board B will look for your risk assessment, and that has to be in date. So if you did it last year and it's 2019, it needs to be updated. It needs to be within a 12-month period, yeah. And
I believe if any new, obviously, risks come onto the farm, be it new machinery or anything that could be seen as hazardous, it needs to be updated again.
Yeah, and then with the larger farmers, then they may have changes in staff, such as contractors and so on. So you need to include staff, various new staff that might have come on board and somebody left, or a new tractor or something like that. Yeah, that's correct, Owen.
Brilliant, thanks, Jim. And I think, as you were saying, Jim, that's just a really easy thing to do. You can update that, I think, anytime online, Jim.
It is, and I had a couple of more, but didn't want to delay the thing too long. When you're in the middle of that, if you get a call, cow calving or something, you have to leave it. You can just X out of it, and everything will save. So you might be halfway through a document on your slurry facilities or whatever. It shows green, it shows red until it's finished. So if the document isn't finished on page 4, it will stay red until you tick all the various different things down along. So it's very user friendly, and most people, I'd say, will have a good crack at it.
Yeah. Oh, thanks a million again, Jim. And everybody that's watching, there's some nice questions that have come in there for both yourself, Alma, and for you, Jim. So I might just start getting to those and maybe give you a chance to cover them off. So Alma, one that's come in for you is somebody has asked, should kids be kept off the farm altogether?
No, I don't think there's a better classroom out there really for kids. There's science, there's enterprise, there's animal welfare, there's where your food comes from. They learn an appreciation for really the family business. But what I don't like to see is when kids are exposed to unnecessary risk. That's really where we got to strike the balance. What's okay and what's not acceptable. You know, Jim mentioned his kids there. I've had the pleasure of meeting his kids, and I loved watching them as they interacted with the cattle at a show last year. They knew how to groom them, knew how to manage them, knew how to mind them. Those things are vital. But what I also see, and I actually get sent a lot of examples by members of the public, is when I see a 5-year-old sitting unaccompanied in a tractor cab driving it and somebody filming it. I think that's not okay. And I think that's where we really have to decide what's okay and what's not okay. That is not okay. I've also seen a young child operating I think they were 5 or 6 years old, a hydraulic log splitter. That's not appropriate for a child of that age to be doing any of those activities. And unfortunately, I get sent these. So I think we really have to become less acceptable of certain behaviours and exposures of our children around the farm. Can't keep them off the farm, absolutely not. I mean, my own son is only coming back from the farm now with his dad. They lost a couple of chicks, they can't find them, so we're having the whole dead stock and livestock conversation right now. And I mean, that's an important conversation to have, but let's only expose them to age appropriate risks by involving them in age appropriate jobs. That for me is absolutely key.
Thanks very much, Alma. I think that's a brilliant answer. Jim, one that's come in for yourself here, and it's probably really relevant for, I suppose, with the good weather and everything we're having at the moment, Jim. Somebody has asked, why is there not a minimum training requirement for teenagers or young drivers who are obviously driving large tractors, you know, at silage this time of the year, or at corn? They're obviously on our roads. Should there be more training for these young kids that are driving machinery, Jim?
Yeah, this has come up in the last couple of weeks, even the week before, last week before Farm Safety Week, and it happens every year, as long as I can remember. It happens every year when silage season starts, because you've young drivers that are just 18, probably have gotten their license for the first time on tractors, and they're driving nowadays big heavy tractors and trailers. And it's a very valid question, because there's little or no training. There's no, I suppose, what you would call road safety course there. We do a non off-road, as they call it, non-public course, with 14 to 16-year-olds in school. So they're a little bit younger than what I'm talking about. Now, there is a program that the RSA have had. We were involved in a tender a couple of years ago for it. And that program is there, but it's got to do with road safety. So years ago, my older brother several years ago, he got his driving license on the tractor. In those days, where you just give instructions. Nowadays you have walkie-talkies and you have mobile phones and various different ways of communicating to the cab. So the instructor drove behind his tractor as he was doing. He did his provisional license and his full license on the tractor and that. So at the moment there is not, there's a W license there for a tractor, but there's no training or no...
We lost Jim.
Oh, he'll be back. He'll be back.
He's gone. His internet probably dropped.
Yeah.
But, after look, we can keep going here anyway, Alma. There's plenty of questions here. There's one that's maybe for both of you here, Alma. Maybe you can ask it. I think you might have covered some of it at the start, but somebody has asked, how do the Irish figures on accidents compare to Europe and other countries?
Well, in terms of, I think per capita, ours are not good. I mean, farms account for about 5 or 6% of all workplaces, but our work-related accidents, 50% of those happen on farm. So there's a major issue there. That's a disproportionate number. When it comes to the likes of the United Kingdom, we'd be very similar. They might have slightly more, but they've about, I think, something in the region of 300,000 family farms. We've about 140,000. Where a big issue is, though, is in the United States. They've 4 times the concentration of farms in the Midwest region, around the Minnesota areas, etc. They have a huge issue around safety, especially around the Amish communities, where obviously the children are highly exposed to the farms. They might not have very modern equipment taking place. So it would be quite similar, but what has to be known is it's all for the same reason. It's all down to the machines, and it's all down to a livestock. So it's for me, this is all about preventing what is preventable. Accidents will happen. We absolutely know that, but up to about 90% of them, when it comes to a farm, are actually preventable. And that's really what we have to work to. We have to get to a stage where we are reducing farm accidents by 90%. And that's really something I would love to see achieved.
Just on that,
yeah, sorry, Jim.
If you can hear me or not. The other thing that happens in European statistics is that they don't include 60, like children and older people. So when you get to the age of 65, you're not included. Whereas we have farmers been killed at 82. There was a man killed off a quad bike at 82 years of age. So the younger and the older we include them in the actions. Some of our European countries don't include them, so they would have lower figures. So it kind of skews the results a little bit there.
Okay. Technically, ours should be terrific if we were to keep to that route.
Yeah, that's a bit crazy that they don't do that, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah,
makes no sense.
Yeah. Jim, probably a question that you could maybe ask here, just because you've covered the farm risk assessment, but Eleanor has just asked, where do you find the farm risk assessment?
The online version, I presume you're talking about, is
it? Yeah,
I
believe it will be, Jim, yeah.
Yeah, just go into Google and Google Farm Safely, Farm Safely, SAFELY, farmsafely.com. Okay. And you just come up with that screen will actually come up there, and you just register. If you're a new customer, you just register and you get the password back to you in a couple of seconds, and then go in that way. And it's very, very straightforward then after that.
Brilliant. Really, really straightforward. Thanks, Jim. Alma, I suppose a question that came in for you as well is, what can people do right now that would have a big impact?
Well, I suppose one of the slides I just saw that Jim put up was the fact that a tidy yard is a safe yard. A lot of people believe that it costs money to have a safer yard, but it costs no money to put the handbrake on. It costs no money to tidy up the yard. Start the conversation with your children. Explain to them exactly every aspect of the farming, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that is the only way we are going to normalize safety in and around the farm, make it more instinctive as opposed to something we have to be reminded on. A lot of people even say, why do we have a farm safety week? It should be all year round. Absolutely, but weeks like this give us an opportunity to really put it to the fore, and to keep constantly reminding people. Start the conversation now, keep it real, keep it relevant, and what I would love to have achieved very soon is that we have actually got within our schools a schools program around farm safety that does satisfy the requirements of SPHE. There is an appetite for it. I've been out there, I've met with the children, and I think if we really start with this ground up approach, we can definitely make things an awful lot better. We can start with the kids on one level, then into the secondary school. We're looking at the ag science curriculum. Third level, we have it in a lot of the third level qualifications, and then after that, I think mentoring is the way to go, farmer to farmer, working together. And I think if we get that full cycle, that'll be definitely a step in the right direction.
Brilliant. No, I think you nailed it there, Alma. I think education is key, and starting as young as they can. I don't think that we can beat that way of doing things. So thanks for that. There's another question here. I'm not too sure. It's probably an open-ended one for both of you, Jim and Alma. Have there been many farmers prosecuted in the courts on farm safety issues? Do you know?
Yeah, not a huge number, but funny enough, in the last 2 months there has been 2 cases, and one of them was in relation to there was 2 accidents in the Kilkenny, Carlow, that region of the country, where the farmer, one was a farmer who was prosecuted because they were both got to do with sheds and fall from a height. So, which is very common, where you get in a contractor to erect a new cattle shed of some sort or another. But there is an obligation on the farmer. I mentioned early on about, you know, checking the contractor coming in to see is he up to speed on his safety and insurance and all that sort of thing. Where this employee, he was an employee of the contractor, and he fell off the shed in the farmer's yard. And you see, the farmer there could be deemed to be liable as well, because, you know, it's his property and so on. So, and the other one then was in relation to a farmer who was fined, I think, something around €7,500, where a guy was killed in a digger where he was removing a tree, and the tree rolled. He had taken out with the track machine or the digger, and the tree rolled, and it kind of ejected into the cab at the driver, which can happen. Trees, very often largest trees that way, can happen. And they were 2 quite recently. But they're taken under certain sections of the legislation of the Health, Safety and Welfare at Work Act. And if a farmer is proved to be negligent, I suppose, or not taking due care, is the phrase the judge might use, then he's liable. And I suppose that's where those 2 cases were quite recently on that.
Thanks, Jim. I think you covered everything there. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Alma, but I
know there was a case up north where I think a farmer, their 13-year-old son was found driving a tractor, and I think they were actually brought before the courts and fined as well. But I haven't heard of a case like that down here regarding children.
I suppose, though, the trend, you know, because of when we look at accidents, they happen to family members predominantly. And, you know, God forbid somebody loses a child or whatever, the HSA don't take the role of prosecuting the farmer. Whereas that was an employee, it would be different, and it's very likely then there would be a lot more of them. But because they're family accidents or fatal accidents, in this case, that's probably the worst thing can happen. So what's prosecuting going to do again, you know?
Yeah.
I think that as well as the whole complexity around the farm safety issue is that, you know, you are looking at a workplace, but it's also a home, and that's where it gets very emotive. It gets very heated very quickly, and I think that's where, you know, we do have a lot of issues around it.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, both of you guys there. We're nearly done. I just have one more question. It's probably directed towards both of you again, Jim and Alma. So, this person said, we know how many fatal accidents occur on farms in Ireland, but how many people are injured? It's probably something that we often overlook, Jim and Alma, or don't really have concrete figures on.
No, there's no definite way of collecting those figures. You see, an accident, if anybody has an accident that keeps you out of work, you or I in the office, if we have an accident that keeps us out of work for 3 or more days, so if you have an accident on Monday and you're not in work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if you're not back at your office or your job doing normal duties on Friday, it's reportable to the HSA. So if you break a leg or break an arm, you might be able to go in, but you might not be doing normal duties. That's deemed to be reportable. So in industry, it happens where they report, but in farms, it doesn't, because the farmer will say, well, why should I report it? I bring somebody on me and I don't need that hassle now. I'm after having an accident. What the hell more do I need? So that's one of the problems. The best kind of estimate to have is through the Teagasc National Farm Survey, which is carried out every 4 years. And they do a sample of 1,000, I think it's 1,000, maybe 2,000 farmers, and that tends to be a reasonable sample. So it's somewhere around 5, I think it's, not sure exactly correct, but every fatal accident is 250 non-fatal accidents, something like that. It could be even 300. So there could be 5,000-6,000 injuries on farms, with broken leg, a broken bone, a fall, an injury, or hospitalization for a couple of days or whatever. So it's something like that. So there's a lot more of them that we don't know. We're only estimating they're about that.
And then, of course, we've got life-changing issues as well, head injuries, limbs lost, etc. And that, of course, would have a massive impact on the running of the farm incomes, etc. also. So very underreported, hugely.
We have very accurate records with fatal accidents, because the HSA inspector is already called out, and so is the Garda Síochána as well. So they're always documented. So we have very accurate figures there, but not on the other ones.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks very much, both of you guys. So listen, that's everything that's come in. So I suppose looking at the time as well, we're just going to wrap up now. But I just want to first of all take the time, everybody that's watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got something out of what Alma and Jim have brought to this evening. Jim, Alma, I just want to say a massive thank you to you both as well. I think the advice that you've given has been excellent, to just try and educate people and increase the awareness to, the simple hazards that are out there, and just trying to, get a bit more savvy on your farm in terms of farm safety. So thank you both for taking the time this evening. Really appreciate it. Jim, myself and yourself are up again next week.
Next week,
yeah.
I'll come along and support you. I'll be in the audience.
You're more than welcome, Alma. Anytime. Like I said, we really appreciate it. So we do have a webinar next Tuesday. Myself and Jim are on again, as I said. Sprays and pesticides compliance is what we'll be covering. Look, I'm sure if anybody has any further questions or queries, Alma, I'm sure they can get in contact with AgriKids anytime.
Absolutely. Alma at agrikids.ie.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks so very much, Alma. And Jim, just general health and safety, is there a go-to place for farmers to get more information or to get a bit more in terms of helping them out?
Yeah, there is. There's probably three, apart from ourselves at the FRS. Teagasc would be quite good, and the HSA themselves. So they're all direct lines there, and there's the Teagasc, so everyone know her, the local Teagasc. And our own FRS, if anybody's here, if you contact your local FRS office, I'm based in Derryvale and Roscrea, but anybody in the local office, contact the local office and we'll get an answer back to them. And any issue, particularly this week that's in it with farm safety, if they have any issues like that or looking for publications or anything, we'll get them out to them there.
Brilliant. Listen, that's it, lads. Thank you very much once again. Really appreciate it. I think it's been brilliant. The information and the advice you've given has been top notch. So thank you once again, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and obviously stay safe. And hopefully you can implement some of the recommendations from Jim and Alma there this evening. And keep your eye out on more webinars coming really soon. So stay safe and see you all again really soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, on. Thank you.
Bye now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.